Hey guys, so I want to make a new video going over the best builds for the Settlers Relaunch, Settlers 2.0, whatever you want to call it. So I made this notepad here, also some video showcases. But yeah, this is my rankings of the best softcore trade builds you can play. So this list is not for hardcore, it's not for SSF, it's just for softcore trade. This is also assuming that trade is going to be a little bit more limited than usual, because there probably isn't going to be as many people playing. So yeah, let's start with the first one, LS Slayer, no surprise here. This is not ranked in any order, by the way. I think all S tier builds are probably equally as good. But yeah, LS Slayer, extremely strong. Anyone who played this league knows, LS Slayer. Video of my character here. I have all the links down below, of course. But yeah, this build is just overall very strong. Really good day one. Really good high-end juice maps. Really good early game. This build really has no downsides. It's just an overall extremely strong build. And anyone who played LS Slayer can definitely attest to that. So yeah, I definitely recommend this build if you've never played Slayer before or Lightning Strike before. It might get nerfed next patch, who knows? It's extremely strong. I did also update my entire PoE for this build, even before this event, so it's way more improved since original launch, since I actually got to play the build and adjust it from there. So I'll have all this linked down below. But yeah, extremely strong build, do recommend. Second build is Hierophant Metaman. He has Karath this video. Metaman I recommend is Frostbolt Ice Nova. You can also do Ball Lightning as well, but Ball Lightning is just worse. But yeah, if you don't like the screen clutter of Ice Nova, you can do Ball Lightning. Anyway, yeah, this build is extremely strong and definitely probably one of the best early tier 17 farmers. You can get a tier 17 very easily. Now, I haven't played it before, but yeah, I do know from other people playing this build, hardcore and softcore, it's both very tanky and very high damage. So I would recommend this build also if you haven't played it, because this build might get nerfed next patch as well, because it's been around for like 2 or 3 leaks now. So yeah, a very strong build. I'll link around this video down below. This will be more of a hardcore build since he's a hardcore player, so keep that in mind. But yeah. Build after that is Hexblast. So Hexblast, once again, of course, a very overpowered build, and it might be nerfed next league as well. So if you haven't played Hexblast, maybe you should do it. Do note that Hexblast is mainly for doing tier 17s early or Sanctum. I wouldn't recommend Hexblast if you just want to speed farm maps. Definitely the Hierophant Metaman or Lightning Strike Slayer is better for that. But if you want to do really early tier 17s on like day 1, day 2 gear, as Ventura is doing here, it's a very strong build for that. Or if you want to do Sanctum day 1, day 2, then Hexblast once again is very strong for that as well. If you just want to speed clear tier 16s or speed clear tier 17s, then I wouldn't recommend Hexblast. If you want to do the Rogue Exile farm, Hexblast is also pretty good for that as well. Next build is generic slams. I don't have a video of this. I couldn't really find a good one, but I think slams are extremely overpowered for like day 1, day 2, day 3 progression, and then eventually you want to swap to either like Lightning Strike or you want to swap to Molten Strike of Zenith. So yeah, these are my recommendation for the best builds to play in the new Settlers relaunch. I think these are definitely the 4 best builds. And then A tier builds is bow builds, which might be S tier. These are a little bit more advanced. If you're a little bit more newer to the game, might not be the best. Yeah, also I have my bow guide as well, which I have updated since league start heavily. I'll have this link down below as well. But yeah, bows are actually pretty good, really strong. I wouldn't say they're quite S tier, but they are really fun, really good. They are squishy, but they're one of the fastest map clear speed builds you can play. As you can pretty much see from this footage, you clear maps really fast. Damage is really nice. It scales with Headhunter quite heavily, so you really do want Headhunter, and that might be hard to get in the temp leagues. Just keep that in mind. But you know, if you're new to the game, I wouldn't recommend bows, but if you do want to play it, hey, go for it. Unlike the other builds, this is probably not going to be nerfed anytime soon. If anything, I think bows are more likely to receive a buff first than a nerf. But yeah, bows also very good. After that, we have Power Siphon Mind Trickster, swap to LS later. The reason why this is A tier and not S tier is because if you are to play Lightning Strike, I think you should just play Slayer instead. I think LS Slayer is a way better softcore build than Trickster. Trickster is very tanky, but you don't need like 20,000 ES in softcore unless you're doing stuff like Valor maps. But if you're doing like regular map in tier 17s, in my opinion, LS Slayer is just way better because it's way faster and it's way higher damage. But if you do want to play Trickster, it's obviously still a very good build. Frostbolt's a Catabasis. Kind of same thing as Trickster here. Catabasis is just a worse Lightning Strike. It's still very good because, melee's pretty OP. But yeah, feel free to play it. Very strong. Icicle Mines, this is for like Sanctum slash day one progression. It doesn't scale that well, but it is very good for day one, and it's also very good for Sanctum. You can clear tier 16s on a Bit of Dream. So yeah, really strong day one build. I think it's kind of underrated and a lot of people don't play this. Maybe in the future people will, but it is really, really strong day one because of how low gear investment you need to make this build work. Peacock and Bouncing, if you want to do stuff with Peacock and Bouncing, I think Jung and Rue both have builds for this, but yeah. Very good Sanctum and day one progression as well. Eventually you do want to swap out of Peacock and Bouncing into a different build, but it's really strong early on. You know, this first day 1 to 3, which is what this tier list is based off of. The best scale on builds is of course going to be Slayer, Line Strike Slayer, Hierophant Metaman, and bow builds. Every other build on this list is pretty much just for like the early game, like day 1 to 4. Catabasis also in that category where it does scale well. So, you know, PS Mine, Trickster, Generic Slams, Icicle Mines, and Peacock Bouncing, these are just like progression-based builds. You do want to swap off of them eventually. And to quickly go over the not listed builds, RF. So RF is a really good casual build. You know, Pox has the very famous guide for it. What's very good for racing to 100 on SSF. But in my opinion, if you're playing softcore trade, I do think the build is pretty mid and it's not that worth playing. Of course, if you do want to play RF, go play it. It's not a bad build by any means. Molten Strike of Zenith. I got this question a few times of why NMs of Zenith wasn't on this list. It's because you should never ever league start as Molten Strike of Zenith. There's absolutely zero reason to. It's probably one of the worst league starts you could actually do because it's so slow early on with no attack speed. Do not league start Molten Strike of Zenith. Just play another melee skill, and then, you know, 3, 4, 5 days down the line, when you have the gear, swap to it. But do not league start as the skill. League start as Line Strike Slayer, league start as Slams. It's just going to be so much faster and so much better early on. Like this skill, as soon as you get to white maps and you're playing Zenith, it feels just so slow and so bad to play. I do not recommend it. It's a skill you swap to. It's not a skill you league start as. But yeah, that's my tier list for the relaunch. I'm of course going to play it and stream it. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. If it builds on this list, I might just forgot about it. Doesn't really mean it's bad. It's just my opinion. You know, after playing Stellaris for months, these are definitely the top tier softcore builds. But yeah, that's pretty much about it.